podcasting, the science of understanding, deconstructing, and reconstructing content. However, it is not an all-powerful art. It is impossible to podcast about nothing. If one wishes to podcast about anime worthy of podcasting must be watched. This is the law of equivalent exchange, the basis of all podcasts. In accordance with this law, there is a taboo among podcasters. Decent salaries are strictly forbidden. For what could equal the value of two white dudes discussing anime for way longer than anyone asked them to?
Hi, my name is Brogan.
And I'm Josh. And this is How to Otaku.
Oh, I wasn't expecting that, Josh. Christ almighty. Okay. Well, this is How to Otaku, and this is a brand new podcast where we discuss anime one series at a time. Josh, what are we watching? What did we watch this time?
This time we have watched Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood episodes 1 through 5.
And have you ever seen any anime before this? Like
I've seen a little bit. Okay, so if you count movies, I've seen like a handful of Studio Ghibli stuff. I've seen Akira and what's the other one? Promare, and there's like one more, Ghost in the Shell. I've seen that one. And then okay, so that's basically what accounts for like my movie watching part of it. And then like as far as television shows go, the only show I have quote unquote finished, I say that because it's not actually done, is Beastars. That was popular on Netflix for a while, so I checked it out. It was only like 8 episodes long, but I thought it was alright.
I gotcha.
Then I've seen like 10 episodes of Cowboy Bebop, and then like 2 episodes each of JoJo, Castlevania, My Hero Academia, and that's pretty much it. I mean, unless you count New Animaniacs as well, I haven't seen anything else.
New Animaniacs is the best anime this season. So you haven't you haven't seen the big 3. You haven't seen Dragon Ball, One Piece, Naruto. You haven't seen any of those.
No, I have not seen any of those.
All right, so.
And I don't believe we'll ever get to those on this show just because they're so long, but...
No, probably not, but Josh, I do encourage you to at least watch up to the Frieza arc, which we may do. I may force you as like a special thing to watch up to the Frieza arc, because honestly, after that, like, people are gonna... I'm gonna get shit for this, but like, Dragon Ball, like, that's all you really need to see. That's all you really need to see.
Like, how long is that? Out of like...
How long is that? Oh, God.
Yeah.
That's still probably like 100 episodes or something. I'm not even gonna lie. I don't know off the top of my head, but that's quite a lot of Dragon Ball.
But, like, is it like the majority of the show, or is it...
No.
Like, no? Okay.
No, not even. There's like... So... Oh, wait, we'll have a Dragon Ball discussion some other day. Today we're talking about Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. And, this is a full spoiler cast. It's like a book club, basically, is what we're doing. And so if you haven't seen episodes 1 through 5, or you haven't seen them in a while, or you just don't care, I would encourage you to watch those episodes. But if you don't care, then there will be spoilers, is basically what I'm saying.
And, so, if you're watching in another country, you can go to justwatch.com to figure out where you can watch them. But in the US, you can watch Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood on Netflix, HBO Max, Crunchyroll, or Hulu. So, if you have any of those, I believe Crunchyroll is free. So,
there are free trial versions or something of pretty much all of these platforms.
Yeah.
Crunchyroll itself is not free, but if you know your way around, I'm not condoning this, but you can probably find Fullmetal Alchemist and pretty much anything else you want to watch somewhere on the internet. for very little to no money if you're smart.
Are you condoning that people
I
do...
specifically said I was not.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yo-ho, yo-ho.
This is not Yo-ho, yo-ho, the piracy podcast, where we discuss all things piracy.
Wait until we get to One Piece. Anyways, this has been your spoiler warning. We're talking about the show now. Josh, what did you think about episodes 1 through 5? Well, okay, what... I don't even know where to start. I would like to say, I forgot how hard the opening and, the OP and ED fucking slap.
I think they're pretty good. I confess that I have not listened to the entire end song, because, like, you know, on Netflix you just get, like, the next episode thing, and so I just click it, but...
Josh.
I'm sorry.
Like required read. Okay, so for the next 5, it's required reading that you listen to the ED. You have to listen to the OP and you have to listen to the ED at least once for every new one. Okay?
Is this
I'm not gonna make you do it every time. This is like no. You're not. You have to listen to it at least once for every new one.
These are like a big deal for the shows, are they?
I mean, honestly, not really. Like,
okay.
In anime, a lot of people like to hyper focus on the OP and the ED. Mm-hmm. In a lot of like movies or other kinds of television, they're not so important, but they're kind of like trailers in a way for the show. They're very good to like track your progression through the part or the season in a lot of cases, because at first they just look like pretty flary, flashy animation set to really cool music, and then slowly throughout the series you'll see things in the OPs. JoJo's is very good about this, and I will constantly be talking about JoJo's, where it gives you hints of things that happen later that you don't understand early, but then you see it in the show, and then you see it in the OP, and you're like, oh my god, that's what that is.
Have you seen, have you watched BoJack Horseman on Netflix? Because they kind of do a similar thing, where, like, you'll see something change in the opening, like, credits roll or something, and, like, it'll hint at something that happens later in the episode. So they do that a lot.
I've not seen BoJack Horseman, but it is on my watch list.
Yeah, it's very, very good. A lot of people don't like the first half of the first season, and like I kind of agree that like it doesn't really get rolling too hard, but like it's not like an insufferable show up to that point. And then after that, it's just perfect. Like, so, especially if you like depressing shit, but.
Depressing shit is my bag. It's exclusively what I watch.
If you like depressing shit and animal puns, it's your show.
Okay, BoJack Horseman, next thing on the watch list.
All right.
So yeah, OPs and EDs, very important, must watch. Some people say you have to watch it every single time. I won't enforce that, but I do think that the OPs for Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood are mostly very good. The first one is incredible. I will reserve judgment for the other ones until we reach them. I remember some of them not being quite as good.
Yeah. Where was I going? Oh yeah. So like, I think this is like a really smart and very like interesting show. Like, it's been a long time since I've seen a show that like uses its concept so well. Like, I think that like the whole concept of alchemy and like the whole like equivalent exchange thing is really, really interesting, and they take that a lot of cool places. Like, highlight episodes are 2 and I don't know, 4. I think 2 and 4 are the best so far, but that's not to say that the other ones are not very close to that, because like these are all like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 episodes. It's I'm very engaged.
Episode 4, typically I like to use Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood as a show to get people into anime, and I typically make them watch the first 4 episodes, specifically because of what we'll get into when we talk about episode 4.
Yes, that, I'll save my thoughts for then.
Slow your roll. But yeah, so Fullmetal Alchemist, it kind of uses a unique power system, kind of like JoJo's or like My Hero, where everybody has like the thing that they're good at, kind of in like an Avatar way almost, where like it's all the same kind of thing, but it's implemented on different things, where like in the first episode it was the guy who does the water alchemy, and so he focused pretty much everything he did on creating steam, creating snow, creating ice, and it's fully explored. Like everything about it is fully explored. Like every fight, the person who is using the thing that they're good at, like the alchemy that they specialize in, especially when it's just a one-off character, they fully explore what they can do with it. The man's making ice walls, the man's making steam bombs, the man is evaporating the water within people as his like primary ability to kill them. And speaking of killing, I watched this show for the first time when I was way too young. I realize this now. I shouldn't have watched this show when I did. Like, there's like mature themes in this that like I knew there were back then, but seeing it now, I'm like, I shouldn't have seen that when I was like 12.
The gore is pretty gruesome. Like it's not incredibly gruesome, but like when it happens, I'm kind of surprised just because of the fact that, like, apart from that, it doesn't really go anywhere else particularly mature. Like, it doesn't have a lot of profanity or sexual content or anything, but, like, but then, like, you know, you see somebody, like, get gored up, and it's a little bit striking.
Yeah, no, like, you see Scar put his hand on somebody's face, and then just blood explodes out of their body. It's not particularly... I wouldn't say it's very gory yet. There's definitely some like there are horror elements to this. Like it's a scary show.
It's very gothic too, like especially in that like that very much like the what's the word I'm looking for, but like the wish that comes true in the wrong way kind of thing.
Yeah,
like,
the monkey's paw.
Yeah, that's a very gothic element to it, and I think that that's really interesting, especially in episode 2, where you know, they try to bring their mother back, and like not only does it fuck them up, but it brings her back, but like in this incredibly deformed, monstrous way, and
the one true taboo of alchemy.
Yeah, it's. Like, I could not imagine having seen this as a kid and, like, not having been scarred. Although, like, I did watch, like, a little bit of scarring content as a child. My father probably showed me the Terminator films way too early, but...
Yeah. So, as a basic framing device for, like, the setup of the world... I'd say that episode 1 does a pretty good job of like giving us our setting.
Yes.
It shows us how integrated the military is with the like leading powers in the nation. It gives us hints about this Ishvalan civil war. It gives us very clear like well no, not clear. It shows very clearly that there are gray areas to basically every character in this show. Like, people are doing bad things for good reasons. People are doing good things, but are they? There's a lot of that in this show. And considering the direction it goes, which I will reserve for later episodes of the podcast, it sets everything up very well, very early. Episode 2, I think, is where a lot of the discussion starts to come from. There is one thing. In episode 1, there's one really important thing that that is like a repeating thing throughout the show, and that is the Philosopher's Stone. You had a couple questions about that, yeah?
Yeah. So the Philosopher's Stone kind of like it's brought up in that first episode, but I don't think we ever see it in the first episode.
The Freezer, he does have one. There's like a scene where I can't remember if it like rolls out from under his tongue or if he's like had it in his hand or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He did have one, which is how he was, along with the circles, his alchemy circles, he was able to use that to create those massive frost walls to attack the Central Command.
Yeah. I think I must have just like written that off in my head as like some kind of like, I don't know, just like a really cool like image or something. But like I didn't realize that was the Philosopher's Stone because they didn't really point it out. And then by the time the third episode rolled around, I didn't even really think about it. And that's the second time that comes up, that Philosopher's Stone. You know?
Yes, with Father Cornello. Yeah.
Yes, Father Cornello. And I really like the third episode just because of like my background as somebody who has grown up in like, you know, in a religious family and like kind of observed the inner workings of religion. I find that a really interesting episode.
I would like, I think it's very interesting. Rewatching it, I'm getting a lot more like
how long has it been since you've seen
context. This? How long has it been? It's probably been 2 or 3 years since the last time I watched it.
Okay.
I was definitely in high school the last time I watched it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so, like, seeing the scene where Edward confronts, God, what was her name? The girl whose boyfriend had died, and she was trying to, like, use religion and fall into the promises of Father Cornello, that he would be able to use his miracles to bring her back. And just to see Edward come in and be like, religion's bullshit, I'm edgy. And I remember, like, when I was in middle school and high school watching it, I was like, holy shit, Edward's so cool. He's such an edgy guy. I love this dude. And then seeing it again now, I'm like, shut the fuck up.
I mean, like, yeah, it's kind of like shut the fuck up, but it's also like he's a little bit right. Like,
don't get me wrong.
He
he's right, but he does it in, like, the YouTube
the shittiest
atheist
play
way.
Possible.
Right. But immediately after doing that, it's revealed, baited, she got baited. Alphonse was like, brother, don't do that. And he's like, oh shit, you're right. Do you think that Father Cornello could save such a sinner as me, could save an arrogant scientist like myself?
I thought that the way they wrote this episode was really, really smart. Like, especially, like, in a little thing like that, where, like, he hooks her into the idea by, like, using what she wants as a motivator to get where he wants. You know, so
right.
I thought that was really cool. I also sorry, like, the, kind of along that lines, I also like the part in episode 5 where, like, he's briefly shown there again, like, well, no, it's not actually him, it's, who is that? Envy, that's right. Envy's disguised as him, and she's, like, riling up a crowd.
I go with they.
And, like, despite the fact that there's, like, very clear evidence that, he was a fraudster, people still believe him. So
oh
like,
my god!
I don't know.
Talk about
talk about
regressive
timely
commentary. Talk about like future proofing your show without even knowing.
Yeah.
I will say we're gonna try and avoid political commentary on this show. I have very harsh leanings in one direction, and they will not be displayed on this show. You'll find them all on Twitter. But yeah, just like seeing episode 5 where just instantly riots break out. Cornello's like, we have to fight against the outside world. They're coming for us. They're lying. It was fake news. And everybody immediately is like, he's right or he's wrong. And then the people in the city just start beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
Something about it still is relevant.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I wanted to note was, like, everybody wants to kill these kids. Like...
Yeah, that is one thing that routinely hit me weird about rewatching these episodes. I didn't catch it as much, like, on my initial viewing, but, like, watching it again, it's so weird how much weight is put on the shoulders of these kids. Like, there was one scene in particular where Maze Hughes was talking like to the group as a whole, Mustang, Armstrong, all them in like the office after, I think it was after the fight against Scar, and then he like deliberately like turned to camera, face Elric brothers. So, what are you two doing now? Yeah. And then Edward goes on like this diatribe of like, well, I guess we need to go back and see our old mechanic, Winry. And it's like,
yeah.
Why do you care, Maze?
Yeah, they should.
It just seems weird that they're putting so much weight on these two kids in that certain situation. Like, I know that Edward and Alphonse are like incredibly unique within this world, but nothing that they're doing really has weight on what the rest of the group is doing.
Yeah, if you need to know what these children are up to at all times in order for your military power to work, then you got a problem there, buddy. Like, maybe you should consider restructuring.
Restructuring. Speaking of supporting cast.
Oh yes.
Who are you taking a liking to? Who are the characters that you're like, oh yeah, that dude? Love that dude. That
Alex
dude? Not
Louis
so great.
Armstrong. Oh my god. Like, he's an absolute legend. Like, in like the first episode, like at the very end when he's like I forget what it was, he's like, the
techniques that have been passed down through the Armstrong family for generations.
Yeah, and then like he literally like rips off his shirt while they're in the hospital, and they're like, examine my body so you might get better, or something like that. And it's fucking hilarious.
You need the example of a peak physical form to inspire your swift recovery. God,
it's such a silly moment.
Armstrong just gets better and better and better.
Yeah, and then like the fight in episode 5 where you get to like see him more in action, that's really dope. Like,
and he's so full of himself, and he has every reason to be.
Yeah, he's the one guy who like, he has no quams with like how powerful he is, but like he's also,
and he
like,
fully lives up
wrong.
to it.
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to Mustang, who's like trying to pop off. He's like, oh, I'm gonna fight this Scar dude, and then he goes snap, and it's raining, and the lieutenant has to come in and swipe him back so that he doesn't get his shit rocked, and then pop off shots at Scar, to just like defuse the situation, because Roy Mustang is way too cocksure of himself for what he's actually able to do at that moment.
Yeah, like, Scar's fucking fast, by the way. Like,
Right?
He can just go.
Yeah, Scar fucks. Like, can we discuss this for a second? Scar fucks. You're just laughing, but like I'm serious. Scar has capabilities here, and it's like way beyond what anybody else is able to do. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
And they don't. I don't think they put enough emphasis on it. It's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, like, okay, so I have a question about the powers. So, like,
yes.
Is it like a, is it basically like a, is it like an avatar system where everybody kind of, like, has their specialties? Or, like, is it like, is it kind of like Dungeons & Dragons where you can do either or? You can either specialize in something or you can just have, like, a general knowledge of everything. Because, like, I noticed that, not Alphonse. Edward doesn't really have like a particular specialty. He's just kind of like good enough at everything, you know.
That I think that for Edward, that comes down to what happens in episode 2, where when he tries to bring back his mother, and he meets that character that calls themselves God. And they open the door and they show him the secrets of the universe.
Oh my God,
I think it comes down. So the same reason that he can like do alchemy without an alchemy circle. The same reason that he just like is capable and knowledgeable of all these things at such a young age, just from his hard studying and from his mother problems, we'll say.
Mommy issues.
A lot of his power comes down to being revealed those secrets by, for right now, what I'll call God. As for other people, most of what they do is pretty specialized. There are always things like summoning circle. No, specifically, like, you have to have a circle to do alchemy, for the most part. Some people will, like Mustang, there was that one scene where he had, like, the gloves in the briefcase that Hawkeye was carrying, and that is his, like, catalyst for creating fire. He uses the gloves with the summoning circles on them, and the snapping as his, like, ritual to create fire.
That's very interesting. Like,
and you would see like in episode 1 where Freeze was drawing the circles to like enhance his summoning powers. He had gloves on or something. I don't exactly like gauntlets, like steel gauntlets with summoning circles. Most of there are some things that you're just able to do, and then other stronger things require a focus. So like, and not a focus as in like a D&D style like object that you use as a quote unquote focus, but like training in that area where it's like Freeze did water alchemy and Roy Mustang does fire alchemy and things like that. Like Armstrong does Armstrong alchemy where he just punch shit good. A lot of what Edward focuses on is more like weaponcraft alchemy. You'll see him turn his arm into things a lot. You'll see him pull spears out of the floor a lot. Things along those lines. Yeah.
Along those lines, I thought it was really, like, interesting, like, whenever he would, like, create something from, like, his arm or whatever, and, like, for some reason it would have, like, his face on it. Like, I don't quite understand why that's the case, but for some reason on a design level it works. Like, it just reinforces that it's part of him. Like,
right. It's very much down that and like the little cutaways where they'll become like really simplistic character designs and things like that.
Okay.
Like
I have
reaction
to talk about
shots.
That because I kind of got annoyed by that, to be honest. Like that specific like animation thing where like sometimes it works like if they're doing like a joke or whatever. I think that that's
Right.
fine, but like in an action scene, it does not work at all. I think it just pulls me straight out and like, you know.
That's just a trope of some shows. It's at the end of the day, honestly, that goes all the way back to the original mangaka. Because a lot of the time, that's like a style choice. A lot of mangaka will do that as like emphasis for a joke or things of that. It's usually for a joke.
Yeah.
But that especially in this case, that's how it was in the manga. That's how they do it in the show.
Okay.
And Bones, which is the animation studio that worked mostly on Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, phenomenal animation studio, especially in the action scenes, which is, I
Yes.
think, where the show really shines in terms of its animation fidelity. There's a lot of scenes where there's just like small details and like intricate movements where there don't need to be, and I really appreciate it. But in the fight scenes specifically, this show pops off.
It really
This show-
does. Yes.
It just every time there's the fight choreography, the animation fluidity, very good. I like one of the like genuinely, if you haven't seen much anime, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, one of the best starting points. Just a very good show overall. It'll dip your toes into a lot of the tropes from other shows, whether they be more serious tropes, whether they be more goofy tropes, like Alex Louise Armstrong. As good of a character as we all love him.
Yes.
But like
He's very silly.
He's very silly. He's very much a comic relief character, and it's just a very good example of this is the range that anime works in. There are really serious shows with really goofy shit in them, and it's just one of those things that you kind of have to get used to. Like the short jokes, don't let up. Like there's always short jokes.
Yeah,
and
I
Edward
love
is
those.
always mad about it.
Yeah, it's a really nice like little character detail that like kind of like that where like, you know, he goes literally fucking anywhere, and like once people realize that, you know, that like, you know, somebody's like, hey, you're the Full Metal Alchemist, and like, you know, and then they just go up to his brother because, you know, he's the bigger one.
Right.
And
he's the giant suit of armor Full Metal Alchemist.
yeah.
And then Alphonse is like, no, not quite.
Yeah, and like as a short person I relate to that, like just the constant assumption that, you know,
Diminutive stature equals less power.
yes. Yes. Speaking of Alphonse, I kind of wanted to get to the voice acting because, like, in general, it's incredibly solid, but Alphonse distracts me a lot, and like, I don't want to.
As a little aside, real quick, we have been watching, and for the rest of this series, we will be watching the dub. That will vary, especially for me, from show to show. I grew up watching this show dubbed, so I'm not gonna watch the sub. It may be very good, but I'm used to the way that these characters sound in English, so I'm watching the dub. Josh is also watching the dub, and I believe that from the most part, you'll be watching the dub for most shows. Yes.
Yes, I believe so because like we wanted to give ourselves the flexibility and format to include like audio clips from the show itself, and it didn't make sense for like me to watch the Japanese subbed version and then like try to get into the and then like use a clip from the English dub, because then it would be like almost entirely a different version, and you know it wouldn't really be representing what I was talking about, possibly. So I felt like dubs in general would be a good rule. Sorry to all the purists out there, but
Myself included. For a lot of stuff, I will watch the sub. There are a few shows that I prefer the dub for. Cowboy Bebop, I know everybody says it. Like, that show is unwatchable without the dub. The dub is the best version of that show. I will not be told otherwise. If you try and come at me about it, I will block you on Twitter. I will block you in real life. You're not my friend.
Yeah. Not to get too far into like a Cowboy Bebop like diatribe, I do agree with that, especially since like it's such an Americanized anime. Like it's very like, you know, cowboys and like American sci-fi that show is, so like it kind of makes sense to watch it in English rather than in Japanese, I guess.
And the English voice cast just did such a phenomenal
and they're very
job
good.
with it.
Yes.
Anyway,
but
back
where I
to
was
the voice
getting
acting.
where I was getting at is like Alphonse's voice is very clearly female. Like it's, you know, it's not like a Bart Simpson thing where they get a female voice actress to do a child and like she like does the hard work to getting her voice to sound kind of like a young boy. Like, you know, they usually like I understand why they do this, you know, so that like the kid doesn't hit puberty at some point and then they have to find a different voice actor, but you know, like, you know, if the voice actress doesn't get it right, it gets kind of distracting in my opinion. Like especially with Alphonse here.
I've heard a similar complaint from a lot of people. For some people, some voices just don't hit the way they're supposed to. Yeah. I don't have a problem with really any voice in this show. I've heard complaints about Edward's voice being a little grating. I've heard complaints about Alphonse's voice being, like you said, much more like a grown woman than like a small boy.
Yes.
And I hear it. For me, it doesn't bother me.
It's not like the worst thing in the world. It's not like it's super distracting, but like every once in a while he'll be saying something. I'll be like, yeah, that's definitely not a young male child, you know.
And in a lot of cases, especially if you're watching the dub, just by nature of, and there's a lot of arguments to be made about dubs versus subs. Are the subs really actually better? In a lot of cases, for English speakers, we don't fucking know. You can assume that the sub is better. Like, you can assume that the subbed voice actors were better because you just don't know Japanese. It'll sound fine to you either way. The English sounds a lot more, like, specifically off in some cases because you can see the lip flaps. You can see where they have to change the way they speak to match the voice flaps. Sometimes the voice actor is just kind of miscast. Things like that. They're a lot more glaring to an English speaker, especially if you watch the dub, which is why some people fight so hard for subs, because a lot of the times they're like, oh, it's purity, subs purist. But they just assume that it's better because they don't know what it sounds like. They don't know if it sounds good or not, so they just assume that it does. Yeah. I feel like that might be a hot take, but it's true. But in some cases, you are just going to have to get over what a character sounds like. It either will click or it won't. And if it doesn't, and you still like the show, then it's just something to get used to.
Yeah, it's. I mean, like I said, it's not like an incredibly distracting issue. And like even when I notice it, it doesn't like, you know, it's not like I'm mad at it or anything, mad at the show or the voice actress or anything. It's just like it pulls me out for that brief moment. I'm like, oh, you know. So I felt like it was worth pointing out. I thought the sound design was like very, very layered for like an animated show, because like I've watched some other animated shows where they don't put the work into like getting very specific sound effects in there and like doing a lot of the hard work in sound design, and this is very, very good at that.
Right, I think especially one of the places that you can like see that most is just in Alphonse and Edward moving. The fact that they have like cloth and metal, and sometimes they're like carrying things, and everything has Foley for it. Like every movement of Alphonse's legs, every time that Edward wrinkles his fingers or anything like that, there's like detail and attention paid to what that would sound like, in some ways that other things might not have done that. And I think that is, again, just, it comes down to studio bones, and it comes down to the production teams that worked on this show. Phenomenal job.
Indeed. Very, very good stuff.
Now,
all
Josh,
right. What's up?
I want to take a break for a second. I want to tell you something. We've been going for about 40 minutes.
Yes.
Would you like to have an ad break?
Fullmetal Alchemist. Fullmetal Alchemist.
And we're back.
All right.
Yeah.
So I know I derailed us from the sound thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to derail us even further. We're going to bring the mood down.
Oh no. Are we talking about...
Josh, episode 4.
Oh, fucking God.
Josh, episode 4.
Okay, here's the thing. Is like, I did not know that this was the show that the long running like anime meme that like, okay, so like I never watched anime, but like it was one of those things where like the meme kept popping up so much that like when it was happening I had to like look into it and see what it was, like see what everybody was fucking joking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I kind of knew that like there was this show where like, you know, some guy like turned his daughter into a dog or something, and like, you know, and like I saw like all the memes and stuff, but like I guess I forgot that it was this specific show. So like once we got to episode 4, like, you know, everything is going along just fine, and then like I see the guy in front of the door and I'm like, where do I know you? Where do I know you? It's like It's like when you see somebody at a family reunion and like you don't remember the last time you saw them or like anything about them, but you know their face.
Oh my
so
God.
Like I'm watching this episode and like it's going along and like then like it's like the moment that like Alphonse walks through the front door, I'm like, wait a minute, is this? And then he opens the door into like his laboratory and like you see those damning, like terrifying white eyes from this man's glasses shining through at this Dutch angle, and he's like, hello there, or whatever, like, and you're like, and I'm like, oh shit, this is the one. This is the episode.
It gets worse every time you watch it. I've seen this show. This will be my 3rd time watching it. I thought I was going to be okay. I thought I was safe. I knew what was coming. I thought I was safe, Josh. It's worse every single time you watch it because you know what's happening. It's so painful. It's so... So, for those of you who didn't listen to what we told you and are listening to this without having watched the show, in episode 4, there's an alchemist, a state alchemist named Mr. Tucker, and his specific brand of alchemy is homunculi. He creates these creatures that are mixes and morphs of different breeds into one creature. And it's kind of gray area, it's pretty sketchy, but it's for, like, the scientific betterment of the rest of humanity that he continues to do this work. And one time, just eventually throughout his research, they frame it that he creates a homunculus that is capable of communicating with humans. And they set this up that the homunculus that he creates that can speak, the only thing that it ever says is kill me,
or like,
or I want to die, or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what they say, but it's
I think it's I want to
lines of,
die.
I want to die. And then eventually it just stops eating and starves itself to death. Several years later, Tucker is struggling to live up to his creation of a homunculus that speaks, and so he's about to get cut from the program. He's about to get funding cut. They're about to axe this man. And in a desperate attempt to regain his former glory, which is also revealed that he does the same thing twice, he fuses his daughter with her dog.
Yeah.
And I just, it's one of the...
It's incredibly upsetting.
It's one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. And I've been on Live Leak.
Oh, Lord.
It's disgusting. And this is, I don't want to say worse, because I don't, like, on a moral level, this is a cartoon about, like,
Yeah.
dude who does magic, but, like, it makes me feel bad. It makes me feel real bad. And it makes me feel worse every time I watch it, because just something about knowing that this man is about to just...
Just, like, completely, like, breach the levels of, like, morality and consent, and it's honestly pretty comparable. Like, not, you know, like, obviously, like, pedophilia is a real issue, and, like, morphing your
And, like,
dog and your child are not real
Right.
issues, but, you know, like, if it was a real issue, I'd say it'd be about equal. Like, you know,
And it's really interesting, especially, like, watching it now that I'm older, the way that it's framed, like, oh, well, Edward, you and I aren't so different.
And, like, no, like, he doesn't violate the consent of children and animals to, like, further his own career.
Okay,
So.
well, Josh, I'm gonna say something here.
I mean, like, well, I guess,
He's
like...
got a point. I think Tucker has a point. Like, obviously, in the moment of watching the show, it's like, you're crazy, you're a psychopath. Of course not. You have the same reaction that Edward does. Stepping back from it a level, and seeing that both of them fuck with the sanctity of life in a way that they think that they can, that no one else can. They think that they're both above the rules. They think they can both get away with it by playing with life. Both for, honestly, somewhat selfish reasons. Like, death is horrible. Having your mother taken from you by a plague, horrible. I have no idea what that could even be like. But then thinking that you can be powerful enough to bring her back, even as a child, like, I know that the temptation is there. As a kid, you want to see your mom again.
Yeah.
But it's selfish and foolish to think that you have the power to do so.
Mm-hmm.
In a not so dissimilar way that it is to be selfish and foolish to think that turning your dog and your daughter into the same entity is an acceptable way to keep your job.
Yeah.
Like, they're on different levels.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them breaks so many more rules for so much less.
Yes.
But it's just another drop in the bucket of everything in this show is gray. Like, the good, like, I mean, for all intents and purposes, the good guys are all war criminals. They all, like, slaughtered the Ishvalans.
Yeah, that was another thing I wanted to get into, is, like, the military state of it all. So, like, the, you know, like, they referenced the war on Ishval and, like, the, you know, and, like, these, I guess there was, like, a race of religious people who, like, you know, just kind of wanted their own state or something, and then there was a rebellion, and then they had to, like, snuff out this whole race of people, and, like, that's really, really, like, you know...
There are some more details about it later. Basically, what happened was, they say it was by mistake, but I mean, like, you can read into it as much as you want to. Of course, the military would say that it was by mistake, that
Yes.
one of their soldiers shot a child. Like, of course they would say they say it was by mistake. You can read into that however you want to. But that sparked this massive civil war between the rest of the nation and the Ishvalan people.
Yeah.
That resulted basically in the systematic slaughter of all of the Ishvalan people, or most of them.
Yeah, it's really fucked up, but...
It's really fucked up. And, Josh, I'm gonna say something that might make you laugh. Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is much more in line with the original manga.
Okay.
There was a 2003 adaptation of the manga just called Fullmetal Alchemist.
Yeah, I heard about this, but... Well, like,
Hitler's in that one.
Huh? Hitler's in it?
Hitler's in that one, yep.
Okay, so, like, does that one,
It goes off the rails. I haven't watched it, but they fully drop the allegory. They just, like, don't even pretend
this is
not about... Like, they fully don't even pretend that it's not, like, a World War II commentary.
Yeah.
It just turns into alternate history World War II. Hitler is there, it's Nazis.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like, I think that, like, I don't know for certain because, like, I haven't seen that show, but I feel like the fact that it is like, a fictional country with its own, like, history and such... helps you lean more into, like, the moral ambiguity of it, because obviously, like, you know, like, so much, I mean, rightly so, but so much of our understanding of the Nazis is rooted in, like, their complete genocide or whatever, and, like, that's awful and we should hate the Nazis, but, like, you know, that kind of leaves out the ability to, like, I mean, it makes it more difficult for an audience to buy into the idea of a gray area, even for, like, normal people who weren't, you know, responsible for the genocide, you know?
Right.
So, like, I feel like having like, the proxy of a more allegorical society is a bit better than that. And I was wondering, I mean, I was interested to see if, like, if there was a connection between, like, this country and, like, the Nazi party, because, like, they're both set around the same time, and they're both, and, like, you know, they both refer to their leader as the Führer, so, like,
yes.
it's an obvious parallel that, like, my head went to, so I think
it's intentional. They're not Nazis, not in this one. I don't know, I can't really speak for the 2003 adaptation, but for this one, it's very intentional. The language that they use, like,
yes,
Mein Führer, things like that, it's very intentional. They want you to, even from the beginning, question, wait, why are some of these soldiers rebelling? Do they have a point? They want you to question it up front.
And
they want you to question it, but at the same time they stifle it. They're like, no, don't worry about it, it's okay, we promise.
Yeah, and that's one thing I wanted to get into that's really, really cool about this show, is that, like, I feel like the greatest, like, you know, the greatest movies and television shows, like, their villains have, like, they're not you know, they're not, I mean, or, like, hang on, how do I word this? You know that on some level what they're doing is wrong, but you also understand their motivations for it, and that always creates, like, the best villains. So, like, you could say that about the water guy in the first episode. His name escapes me. And then you could say that about, like, you could say that about, not necessarily the guy in episode 3, but in episode 4, you could say that about Sho Tucker, and you could say that about Scar in episode 5. Is that,
you could say that about... Wait, hold on. You could say that about Sho Tucker? You could really say that you understand what he's doing about Sho Tucker? I know that I defended the guy, but more on a level of, like, similarity between him and Edward.
Okay.
Than like a moral viability of what he did.
Yeah, fair enough. Like,
but, like, I see your point. Like, fully with, like, Scar,
Uh-huh.
Like, it definitely terroristic, but I mean, he's got a point. These people, some of these people weren't involved, so like he crosses the line there. But like, some of the people that actually were in Ishval and actually did take like part in slaughtering the Ishvalans, he's got a point.
Yeah, so I think that the character work in this show is just really, really, really spot on. You know, they
very strong. Yes.
They round out basically every character so that you know, like you can have like these great moral ambiguities, and you know, and there's more to the show than just like saying like this is wrong, this is right. You know.
I know we've been bouncing around a lot,
Yeah.
and I guess that just comes with the format that we've chosen to do this in, which I'm perfectly fine with. I want to talk just for another little minute about the power systems in this show. I know we've done that twice already.
Okay. We
but
can
I
talk
just-
about
just-
that.
Thinking about it again, even they show like small uses and like small daily applications of alchemy as well. Like when they're at the noodle bar or whatever it was that they were at.
Oh yeah, like he fixes a radio, and then like later he fixes a radio transmitter at the base in episode 4 or whatever. So like you know, you see like the fact that alchemy isn't just like this like weapon of war or whatever. You see that it actually has practical purposes.
Right, and it is stigma. Like we can go on for days about like if we want to wax lyrical about like allegorical meanings of things. Guns, they have real daily implementations. Like it's a weapon of war, but like the guy living out in like the middle of nowhere, subsistence living, who has to like hunt deer.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like an actual allegory for guns or anything, but it is a very interesting like it's a very interesting device, and it's a very I think it's one of the strongest like soft. Do you know the difference between soft magic and hard magic?
Not off the top of my head. Like the terms sound familiar, but I don't know exactly what they are. So like is like soft magic like they like it's just kind of like do whatever you want, whereas like hard magic has more like strict rules. Is that basically the
Yes, so a hard magic system, and I'm reading this definition off of Google. A hard magic system would have a clear set of boundaries to it. An earthbender can manipulate rocks, but not fire. Generally, these rules can be broken, but that's like it has set rules. Whereas, like a soft, well, hold on, that's weird.
what?
Well, I looked this up, and I was going to argue that Fullmetal Alchemist has kind of a soft magic system, because like alchemy can be applied to so many different things in so many different ways.
Yeah, that's true, but like there are also like very hard, fast rules about it. Like you know the
law of equivalent exchange. Right.
Yes. I would say that soft magic is more like the Force, I guess.
Yeah,
or like
the Force. Anything that Gandalf does in Lord of the Rings is very soft magic. It's just he's a wizard. He can do magic. Get over it. So I was gonna go in a different direction with soft and hard magic, but that was just from a lack of understanding. Hard magic, Fullmetal Alchemist is a very good. It's a very good set of hard magic. It's got rules, and it knows its rules, and it knows when it can bend its rules.
Yeah, exactly. I think that that's really important for like a fantasy show to either like state out front that you don't have any rules, or to like establish the rules and stay and like stick to those rules.
It does do a good job, I think, of having rules but not too many.
Yeah, it's a really simple system that like not only applies to like that like you know it's just like the only thing you really need to know is the law of equivalent exchange, and like it applies to basically everything in like really different ways, but in ways that make sense.
Right, like everything is based on turning something into something else.
Yes.
But as long as you can feasibly imagine it and it doesn't break the law of equivalent exchange, then it's free game. And I think it's a very well thought out system. I can't exactly put into terms how, because I wasn't in the writing. I'm not big brain enough. My brain doesn't have enough wrinkles to go into all that. But my monkey brain does like when I see what happens.
Yeah. It all really makes sense. So the only other bullet point I've got that like we haven't really touched on is these recurring like semi-villains. Like they're not villains in the sense that like they directly oppose our antagonists yet, but I'm sure they will. Like the gluttony, envy, and I had to look it up because they never state it, but lust. So
Yes.
without getting into like too many spoilers for future episodes, can you tell me what their deal is?
Well, they are gluttony, envy, and lust. They are people. They operate vaguely under the rules of the like deadly sin that they are named for.
Mm-hmm.
They have very interesting powers that go along with the theming of the rules that they are named after.
Okay.
Not necessarily explicitly alchemy. Like, everything is alchemy in this show, but, like, not explicitly alchemy the way you might think it is with these three. There are more in this group, but like I'm tiptoeing.
Yeah,
I'm tiptoeing a lot because I will say these characters very important.
Okay, cool.
Very prevalent for the rest of the show.
All right. I just kind of wanted to know like a little bit about what their deal was because I wasn't very clear on that.
Their deal is thoroughly explained later.
All right, great.
And I will be straight up with you, like, drip feed until like the end. Like, there's so much like drops in the bucket of information about different things in this show.
Mm-hmm.
Where like you'll get drops in the bucket about one thing and then another thing and then one thing again and then back to the other thing, until one of them is fully resolved, and then we get back to it's just constant drip feeding information. Like, I will say there is a character that is in like 2 scenes so far that is important later.
All right, cool. I think it's also very well paced as a show, like especially like these 5 episodes we chose because like they all kind of like interweave into one another. Like, you know, from episode 1 to episode 2, we have like the, you know, like it sets up the question of, it sets up like their Edward and Alphonse's like origin, and then the second one we get that, and then in the second episode they set up like where they're going to find this Philosopher's Stone, and then the third episode is when they get to where they're going, and then the third episode to the fourth episode there's like the question about the Philosopher's Stone, and then from the fourth one to the fifth one there's the Tucker family getting killed. So like each episode kind of runs into one another in ways that are like, you know, they're not strong and they're not hard enough that like they can't explore a unique idea or concept in every episode, but they're interconnected enough that you feel like you're going from one thing to the next to the next to the next.
Right. And we're left on a pretty good cliffhanger. We're about to go back.
Yeah.
Josh, do you know who we're about to go back and meet again in episode 6?
Is it? It's. She's had a few scenes, but like I don't remember her name.
Winry Rockbell,
Winry,
the brother's mechanic and childhood friend.
Nice. Yeah, she seemed pretty cool in the bits that I saw. So, you know, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, Winry is. I like Winry. Winry is good girl. We like Winry in this house. But I think that wraps up our discussion of these
1 through 5.
of 1 through 5. Yeah, I think we've talked about everything that everything foundational, everything that is important from these 5 episodes. For the most part, am gonna be here to discuss with you points that you want to discuss. I'm not gonna lead you. I'm not gonna try and give you information. I want you to discover this show from the show. If you ask me a question, I'll answer it to the best of my ability without spoiling it for you.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna come in saying I want to talk about these things, because there are things in here that if you miss it, it can be very powerful when it comes back. Because a lot of things do come back that you might not expect, and for those reasons, I'm leaving the pacing and the specific minutia of a lot of things up to you, because especially for this show, because it is kind of a mystery. There's a lot of like, ooh, what's that? Ooh, intrigue.
Dear audience, I'd just like to state that this is his excuse for not helping me out with the outlines for any further episodes.
I'm editing.
I'm just joking.
Listen, we can hash this out if you want to, or we can say we've been very glad to have you guys. We hope to have you again. The next episode will be covering episodes 6 through 10 from Full. I'm wrapping up, Josh.
No, wait, hang on. I just wanted to ask you one last question. What's your favorite episode of this 5 episode bunch?
I mean, it's either 2 or 4. I really like the like origin, I guess, of the brothers in episode 2.
Yeah.
But like genuinely, this is one of the reasons that I use this show to get people into anime, is because of episode 4, the Shao and Nina Tucker stuff, because it's just it's such an impactful thing, and it will stick with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards 2 or 3. I feel like so like 2 obviously has like that really like hard punch origin story, and then like the third one, I guess I just kind of connect with its themes on a personal level, so...
Right. I mean, so far, this batch, I wouldn't say there's been a weak episode. They're all very good.
Yeah. Alright, so anyway, I guess that's it for this episode, if there's nothing else you want to touch on.
I think that's it. Next episode, we'll be covering episodes 6 through 10 of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. We do have a Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Josh, what are those?
You can find those all at How to Otaku Pod. So, like, How to Otaku Pod, as in podcast.
It'll all be linked in the description as well.
It's all in the description. You can also email us at howtootakupod@gmail.com. If you want to follow me on the social medias, I'm on Facebook at JDThorne Film, Twitter and Instagram at J_D_Thorne. And if you care about my opinions on movies, you can check out my Letterboxd.com account at JDThorne. All those links are in the description. Brogan, what do you got to plug?
I'm not too active on a whole lot of social media platforms, but if you like Brogan, you'll love Brogan Live. My Twitter is Brogan_live. You'll see that in the description. You can at me. We'll talk about JoJo's. We'll talk about politics. We'll talk about video games. The World Ends With You sequel got announced today, so that's probably going to be on my feed a good bit. But yeah, Brogan_live on Twitter.
I don't know what that is. That video game you're speaking of.
God, Josh, we'll have a.
Should we start a spin-off about anime video games?
We'll talk about that later.
All right. Anyway, this has been How to Otaku. If you like the show, please share it on all the social medias, and
drop us a follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Yep, and I guess we'll catch you next Friday.
See you, Space Cowboy.
Alright, see you guys then.